it seems like he was really into the idea for this record that it would be impossible for anyone to like all the songs. He was kind of like, love one, you have to hate some of the others. That was part of his thinking.
Well, you sure gave us a lot of opportunities.
Welcome to another episode of 1001 Album Complaints, the show where lifelong friends, musicians, and guys who insist on controlling the stereo during every road trip, big and small, get together to tell the backstory on the most influential albums of all time as chronicled in Robert Dimery's book, 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Now, if you don't know today's album super well or not at all, no worries. We're going to guide you through it. We're going to play song clips while we dive into the backstory of this artist and this album. And along the way, we're going to be breaking these songs down musically, culturally, suggestively, to offer you both our praise and our nitpicky complaints as fellow musicians. And in the end of all that, we're going to vote on whether this album is really a must-listen before you die. Now, if you are a regular listener, thank you and welcome back. And if you're new to the show, let me give you our standard disclaimer. As I said, we're musicians ourselves. We understand how difficult it is to make truly great art, and we come from a place of love and respect for the craft. But we also enjoy nitpicking and complaining and joking around, as the title of our show suggests. We are not super fans, or, well, in this case, we might be. You never know. But it doesn't matter, because even the stuff we absolutely love, we also love poking some fun at. So the bottom line is we won't be treating this artist or this album with any particular reverence. Instead, we're going to be talking some loving smack, the way all musicians do in the van ride to the next gig when the radio plays literally any song ever created. You have been warned. My name's Rob. I'm a guitar player with years of experience playing, writing, and recording music, and I've got a microphone here, so that means you're about to hear my thoughts and opinions. Now, normally, as I said, we randomly select a record from the 1001 list, but today's show's a little different. We held a contest and offered our listeners a chance to pick an album for us to cover. The entry ticket was buying a vinyl copy of our own musical efforts, the Beverly Crushers Enterprise. So thank you to absolutely everyone who bought those records, who streamed it, or even listened to our making of show. It all means a lot to us. But in any case, if you bought a copy, we put your name into a hat. We plucked out 3 winners. This summer, we're now on our third and final winner, listener Sula.
Nice.
Now, like our other 2 winners, we of course offered for Sula to come on the show and defend her pick of an album in person, but the time differences and the scheduling were a bit too much of a hurdle, so she is unfortunately not here with us tonight. Instead, we asked her to record some of her thoughts and send them over. So I will be playing some short snippets of her audio during the show tonight so we can get her take on things. And to kick that off, I'd like to roll the tape of Sula's intro to our album tonight.
Nice. So we don't get to talk shit to Sula, do we?
You can talk a little shit.
All right.
Hello, complainers. I hope you're sitting comfortably and looking forward to dissecting the album I have chosen for you from Robert Dimery's 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Some of you will know this album well, and some of you will have never heard of it or the band. But I hope by the end of the show you will all love it. After all, it's called 69 Love Songs. Now please don't be frightened by its size or its length. Yes, this concept album is a masterpiece of humongous proportions, and yes, you do need stamina to go the distance, but it is better to have listened and lost 3 hours than never to have listened at all.
Pretty cheeky. Yeah, I like it. So we're still sticking with Dimery. We're going to pronounce it wrong because we're Americans, damn it, right? Knowing full well that it's pronounced Dimery, the gentleman who wrote the book, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this was yet another reminder that we have been pronouncing it incorrectly all along, and yet we will dig our heels in. I'm going to take a cue from our friend Tom here, and I am not going to change no matter what.
Hell yeah.
Okay, and I should mention that Sula, in my emails back and forth with Sula, she mentioned that she was afraid she didn't sound very sophisticated. And I just have to assure her that to us Americans, she might as well be a part of the royal family with that accent.
Seriously.
Definitely sounds more educated to us, but that is the funny nature of accents. Anyway, Sula, our listener, who picked this record, is of course speaking about the Magnetic Fields 69 Love Songs, a 3-disc opus that we're going to be telling the backstory of tonight. But first up, to get us situated in the music right here at the top, we're going to play a clip from the opening track. It is called Absolutely Cuckoo.
Don't fall in love with me yet, we only recently met. True, I'm in love with you, but you might decide I'm not. Give me a week or two to go absolutely cuckoo. Then when you see your error, then you can flee in terror. Like everybody else does, I only tell you this cause I'm easy to get rid of, but not if you fall in love. And now that I'm on the make, and if you make a mistake, my heart will certainly break. I'll have to jump in a lake, and all my friends will blame you. There's no telling what they'll do. It's only fair to tell you I'm absolutely cuckoo.
And with that out of the way, we are ready to roll into the rest of our show. And we like to kick things off here every week with a snarky, extra mean tweet-length review from our panel of complainers. Kick things off with our snarkiest take. And I'm going to throw it first to Adam.
Hey, everybody, this is Adam. And in honor of this triple album release, I've written 3 10-minute tweet-length reviews that I'm going to... I'm kidding. Mine is actually pretty short this week. And it is as follows. The only magnetic field I felt was repulsion.
Ouch.
Stupid little science joke there.
Okay, we're going to kick it next to... You know what? Actually, before I send it to you, Marty, I'm realizing now that Sula also sent me her tweet-length review, but requested that I read it aloud. So I'm going to read you, listener, Sula's tweet-length review. Then we're going to get to Marty. Then we're going to come back to my own tweet for the record. Sula wrote, like you put all your CDs in a blender and produced 3 piles of absolute garbage.
It's good.
Oh, damn. All right. That is pretty good. Nice.
Like I said, what we do here is we take what we love and we tear it down because that is what musicians do. Thank you for that, Sula. I know that can't have been easy, and I'm going to throw it next to Marty.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Glad to be back here. Here's my mean tweet. On this album, Stephin Merritt of the Magnetic Fields shows he's more of an autofellatio guy than a 69er.
Nice.
Dude,
Very nice.
Well done. Well done.
And this is Rob here, and I'm going to echo that sexually themed tweet. My tweet length review is, much like the sex act it references, this 3 CD set sounds like a great idea in theory, until you realize that you're spending way too much time up close and personal with an asshole.
Oh, man.
Dude, well done.
Okay, we are going to transition now into getting some general impressions on the record. But first, I just wanted to kick things off with what Sula sent us about why she loves this record. Again, she can't be here with us tonight, but we have a few of these thoughts from her.
There is so much to engage the listener on this album. Beautiful harmonies, several different voices, uncommon instruments, and clever lyrics. I mean, who would use Splendid or Pantone 292 in a love song? Or even Unboyfriendable, implying the old "it's not you, it's me" line.
That's funny because that one word in that song actually stuck out to me, and I wrote that down as well. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Well, can we say, because we have said this a couple times in episodes past, we've joked about it, we've teased but not revealed until last week what this pick was going to be. But Sula's initial goal, she cheekily said, was to make Adam suffer. I think she understood that this is really, really not up Adam's alley, at least on paper. It's very indie. It's very bedroom. It's got a lot of, I don't want to say wrong notes, but it certainly doesn't have beautiful singing or beautiful textures on it.
Sure.
So, Adam, I think we're all super curious to hear a little more about what you think.
Well, Sula, mission accomplished. First off, it's great. It's great to be able to put a voice to the name because Sula's been in our Patreon chat for a while and she's always chiming in. And so it's going to be great to be able to read her comments in that voice, kind of like we all do with Morgan Freeman whenever we see him. So this was interesting. And I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the length of it because that's kind of the elephant in the room for me.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of good stuff here, but there's a lot of just throwaway stuff. And if you're going to try to convince me that I need to hear this thing, I don't know, man. 3 one-hour albums is a bit tough. And I also recognize, too, that coming in, having never heard this before, I'm at a disadvantage because I assume Sula has been listening to this for years since it came out. Rob, I think you're familiar with it, so you've probably had a few more. But the way that we dive into these albums here is that we really only give ourselves about a week. So something of this size was really hard to digest. I'll be honest, I made it through the entire thing front to back twice and then, random shuffled a bit. And then we have our focus list here. So I recognize that's not the optimal way to go about this.
And I don't think that it necessarily is meant to be listened to in one sitting. I mean, it's a concept album.
Sure.
It was released as 3 separate albums, but I agree that there is a lot of material here, and there are some hits and there are some misses. I would say the hits revolve around Stephin Merritt's ability to write a hook, which I think Adam, you would like about this album because there's a lot of pop, catchy elements to some of these songs, and also just kind of the turn of phrases, some lyrically and otherwise that make it a fun listen.
Let me jump in and give my thoughts and respond to some of what you guys said. I love this. I find it inspiring, witty, creative to an insane degree. He makes it seem like it's so easy to churn out these songs. But I know from experience, having attempted to write songs for so long, that it is not easy at all to land these pop melodies, to land these turns of phrase, to coin new words like aforementioned unboyfriendable. And he's able to do that. He's able to use, weirdly, even though it's bloated, he's able to use an economy of words to get a lot of story and universal truth across. They get very specific, and by getting more specific, you get these universal sentiments about love and about relationships. Describing a feeling of sadness with Pantone 292, it's both a forced rhyme that is almost making fun of the songwriting process and a brilliant way to land it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And I think in some cases, the love song aspect is really kind of shoehorned in to a song that you're like, that's not really a love song until you say, like, I miss you at the end, or something.
I just want to clarify that the bloatedness is the point. And even though I have been listening to it since around the time it came out, which is a little over 20 years ago, this week gave me some new appreciation for how much of it there is. And we'll talk more about this as it goes, right? Because basically the maximalist approach is the point. It all works together. And in that sense, I do not actually think there are any true misses. I think that it works as a piece. I'm saying that as someone who in the past, and I even threw out last week, a little exercise that Sula and I engaged in as longtime fans of this record to trim it down to a 44-minute playlist. And I did that. And as I look back at my playlist, I realized I had done that in the past. And Sula did that as well. We'll talk about that a little later. I invited some of the listeners who might know the record to do that. But honestly, through researching it and listening to more of it, I realized that exercise is it's fun, but it's kind of pointless. It doesn't capture the essence of what's actually going on here or what the point of this is.
You need the whole thing.
I do also agree with Marty. It's not meant to be listened to 3 hours back to back. That's insane.
Sure.
My point is it's about discovery. It's about finding the hidden gem deep in disc 3 that you're like, man, this is a really cool song. I had never discovered this. And so that was some of the experience I had this week. Even though I had listened to it a bunch, I can't say I was familiar with all 69 songs.
How dare you, you monster. I'll be upfront. I won't leave the listeners in too much suspense, but I'm already leaning towards liking this because of the things you talked about, that even just in a week of listening, I started to pick up on, which is this guy's a great lyricist. He's a great storyteller. And to your point of like first making fun of a genre, right? So he's got a bit of parody in there, but in order to parody, he actually wrote a really good song. So it's like there's a couple layers of things going on, and it's again, it took me, a week of listening to really start dissecting some of these. And like you said, the turns of phrase, I got choked up on some songs on here. So it's cool. It's very cool.
I think another thing he does that's interesting is, Rob mentioned the word economy. He has a really good economic use of instrumentation. He uses about 55 different instruments that cost about $30 and then combines them in, and he's very tasteful with kind of how he uses weird, cheap glockenspiels and, ukuleles and things like that to kind of get across almost like an composed music.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, and that is something I appreciated more over time as well, Marty, is that on the one hand, these feel like sketches of songs, like not completed productions, which is a tempting complaint to make. They're home recorded, they're short, and they don't always feel beefed out with arrangements. And in a sense, I really do think that's very purposeful. I think it's crying out for cover renditions, right? These are like songs that are just waiting to be picked up. It reminds me a little bit of publishing his own songbook, and he's trying to add back to the standards list. And we are going to talk about a couple semi-prominent cover versions that have come up. But I also saw somebody in an interview saying about this record, or in a review, that it charms as much as it challenges.
That's good.
So I hear that. I think that was a good description. It's got cynicism, it's got sentimentality, both. You alluded to that, Adam. But really, ultimately, because of the instrumentation, because of the quirks of his voice and the other voices, because of the lyric writing, which I think is just really 10 out of 10, it is very, very charming for me, consistently.
Yeah, after listening to that Zappa album, man, everything is charming. Like if that's going to be our high watermark for challenging, this was an easy week. So yeah, I actually wound up enjoying this a decent amount.
You're right. It almost could be like a litmus test in charm. It's like, if you're not charmed by this album, then something's not right.
So there's one other factor that I want to make sure we get across here, which is this is coming out at a time, it's pre-streaming. This was a wild proposition to do. And I do believe that it influenced a lot of what came after it in terms of the 21st century of bedroom recordings and SoundCloud uploads and concepts like writing a song a day, for instance. Mm-hmm. It was innovative in that sense. And I know it's only about 25 years ago, but a lot has happened, both technologically and otherwise with it. And I do feel its reverberations throughout a lot of music, especially people making stuff in their bedrooms.
Only 25 years ago? Jesus, dude, you're making me feel old.
Right.
This is a new album.
But ultimately, it is, in my opinion, it's a 10 of 10 record for me personally. So I'm not going to be hiding the ball on this one. I'm going to be arguing for why it is important, or at least great to listen to. And I do think it's some of the best straightforward pop songwriting of our lifetimes. So I was hopeful, Adam, that you would see that aspect of it. I know you're not the biggest lyrics guy, and I do think lyrics are a big part of this record. But ultimately, he is very catchy. He knows, like Marty said, how to write a hook, both lyrically and melodically, right?
And the fact that I did pick up on some lyrics says something, right? That the vocals were out front enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't so bloated with instrumentation that the melody, and I heard there was a melody and I heard the lyrics through that. And in fact, I don't want to go overboard and say that there were Beatles-ish aspects of this, but there's a playful nature in these ditties. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That reminds me of some of that early pop that was very simple and very quirky, cute, and sentimental. And so there's definitely a lot of that going on here.
That's a really good point, Adam. It's almost impossible not to hear the words.
Right.
You have to be real something weird to not hear the words. And it all adds up to this, you're right, just one big uniform, like perfect, almost perfect kind of style of pop music.
So we know Adam's coming in fresh on this one. I'll just mention that my history with it is that I first heard it a couple years after it came out when I was around 23, 24. And I have a very specific memory of my friend and friend of the show and sometimes guest James playing the song Luckiest Guy on the Lower East Side in my car. And it was one of those things where the very first time it just jumped out to me and I was like, I want to know more. Tell me more about what this is.
Nice.
And how I should get in. And I'll say further that was a time in my life when I was in particular aspiring to be a songwriter and be in a band and take that stuff pretty seriously. And I was really inspired by this in terms of just what was left to be done with songs, with concepts, the sort of craft of songwriting. Again, Stephin Merritt makes it look so damn easy. It's not.
Yeah.
And as we'll see in the story, he takes a very workman-like approach to it. He sees it as a craft. He sees it as something you simply have to put hours into consistently. And, he has a lot to show for it with that. Cool. I wanted to play one more thing. Sula also sent us a little clip of how she originally found the band, and I wanted to play that before we move on.
Nice.
If you believe in love at first sight, then you must certainly believe in love on first hearing. That's what happened to me with one of the album's most popular tracks, All My Little Words. I first heard it while watching the police drama The Shield back in 2008. Out of the TV came one of the most beautiful songs I have ever heard. The intro of banjo and guitar followed by a sweet and gentle sad voice took my breath away. This was how I lost my oral virginity to 69 love songs and the magnetic fields.
And heads up, that's going to be one of the songs we break down as part of our focus list later. But also, Sula, congrats on mentioning The Shield. I think it's a very underrated.
Starring Michael Chiklis.
And Walton Goggins, who's very hip right now. Absolutely killer series, in my opinion. Completely landed the ending. Worth watching. But anyway, let's get into the background of this record, the story of Stephin Merritt and Magnetic Fields. But before we do, we're going to take a short break. And we're back. Now, for this week, I tried to excavate as much as possible about the creation of this album, but I'll be honest, Stephin Merritt, the lead songwriter and producer, gives a lot of interviews, but can be a bit cagey with the specifics. Now, I did read the 33 1/3 book on this album specifically, which was written by one of the singers that we're going to hear on this record. Spoiler alert, didn't give a ton of new information to how these songs were made, but it was an interesting read.
Now, that book is it's like a breakdown of the album, song by song. I feel like I saw that reference somewhere.
33 1/3 is a book series. Each edition is about a different album. They're all written by different authors, and they do not follow any particular format. So they're published by a certain group. There must be 50 to 70 of them out there now. So I've read several of them.
Okay.
For instance, I read the television Marquee Moon one for last week's episode, but they really vary quite a bit in what they reveal. Some are straightforward studio diaries. Some take a more fictional approach. Some take an oral history approach. They're kind of all over the map. This one was a little bit of a mixture. It had some oral history aspects to it, but it was a lot of people reacting to the songs without a ton of very specific details on how these were conceived or recorded necessarily, even though Stephin Merritt was quoted in the book liberally.
Got it. Okay.
Anyway, I also read a bunch of articles about it, interviews with the band. I watched a documentary called Strange Powers, Stephin Merritt and the Magnetic Fields. That's just a little bibliography if anyone's curious where I'm getting most of this information up. So, the story of 69 love songs starts with Stephin Merritt, known for his prolific songwriting, his bass range male voice, and for being the human embodiment of the cartoon cat Garfield. It's seriously, you got to go watch the Tidy Desk concert they did kind of recently on the 25th anniversary tour. That description nails it, I assure you.
Is he eating a lasagna while he's...
I think he's too depressed. So it's on a Monday.
Oh, okay.
And there's no lasagna in sight. That's the,
Oh, okay, all
that's
right.
the
That's
version
depressing.
of Garfield we're getting here.
All right.
Stephen is born in New York, but grows up in Boston, where the magnetic fields are officially formed. His mother was a hippie, a Buddhist seeker type. They moved around quite a bit when he was young, including some time at a Tibetan Buddhist commune in Vermont, where music was expressly forbidden.
Whoa.
And keep in mind, that was before they had to listen to a 3-hour-long concept album. So he actually said that at the age of 23, he sat down with his mother. They counted the places that they had lived in his lifetime. And they had at that point lived in 33 different places.
Wow.
Now, his father was a semi-successful folk singer called Scott Fagan, but he wasn't in Stephen's life at all. In fact, Stephen didn't even meet him until he had become a successful musician himself. And there's a kind of a funny story about how one day in college, Stephen finds a copy of his dad's record at the record store with a big picture of his father's face on the cover, which shocks him because it looks exactly like him.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
But he hadn't met him before. Stephen briefly attends NYU and in the 80s worked as an editor for Spin Magazine as well as for Time Out New York. So he has this writing background. He's also gay. And as someone who's been listening to this record for 20 years, I had always thought that this aspect of his life played a fairly big role in his songwriting. To me, I hear a lot of social isolation, outsider heartbreak on the tape here. But I will say that reading interviews this week, Stephen consistently plays down that, or really anything in his own life, is any kind of a major influence on his songwriting point of view. We'll get into more of that later. Stephen, however, is also a vegan, and in his own words, probably on the spectrum. Plus, he's epileptic, and he has a hearing condition called hyperacusis, which basically means that loud background noise quickly starts feeding back into one of his ears, and it's painful. So this has led to him touring very infrequently, basically never using live drums or any significant percussion. And in fact, he wears earplugs most of the time, even when he's not on stage.
Just walking around.
Walking around. And apparently he still even has to cover his ears when the audience applauds.
Wow.
Right? Even though he's got earplugs in, which just imagine you're a fan who doesn't know about this condition. You're seeing an artist on stage literally blocking out your claps.
Scream louder, sweetheart. Yeah. Right. Dude, that's wild.
Pretty wild. Now, the Magnetic Fields, the band, draws its origins really from Stephin Merritt meeting a woman called Claudia Gonson in high school. She's the sister of a classmate. They bond over early David Bowie songs and some of the chord changes therein, and they have been working together ever since. She is sort of an extroverted yin to his grumpy cat yang, and in addition to Claudia singing and playing, she's consistently filled the role of the band's manager, and I think sometimes even the personal manager to Stephin Merritt.
It's funny. I had always assumed until I looked at these songs in the last week that she was the female lead on all the songs with female leads, and she's not.
Correct. There's a couple different people singing. Stephen sings the majority. There's 2 other women who take the lead and 2 other men. But, you know, we don't maybe talk about this too much, but when you're not looking at liner notes or really actively reading that kind of stuff, I can remember listening to this record and thinking, well, there are clearly different singers here, but your ear just has a tendency to push them all into the same bin without any other information to go off of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I thought all the women were just one, and then all the non-Stephin Merritt people were one guy as well. So I had a hard time distinguishing that.
But then even then, it's a little confusing because sometimes Stephen, his range does go higher than you might expect on some of the songs. Like, he kind of
Right.
does have a pretty big range. I mean, he goes really low.
He goes to the low crooner, like Sinatra stuff, but he does get up there, and sometimes it can be confusing.
Exactly.
For sure.
So it can make these songs a little hard to sing sometimes because I have sat down and tried to get through these songs on guitar, many of them, many times. So anyway, the band was originally intended as a studio project called Buffalo Rome, but it morphed into the Magnetic Fields with a 4-person lineup plus guest stars. They played their first show in Boston in the 80s with Claudia on drums, and there's also a tuba player in the band. I saw a clip of this in the documentary.
Nice.
Now, interestingly, Claudia said in an interview that when they started the band, they purposely had 1 gay man, 1 straight man, 1 straight woman, and 1 gay woman, thinking that the audience could simply choose who to relate to.
Shotgun approach. It's not a bad idea.
It's an interesting approach, right? And despite what I said earlier about Stephen downplaying his level of intention to speak to the hearts and minds of the LGBTQ community, you really get the sense reading about this record that the Magnetic Fields material, in particular this album, have really been embraced by that community. So that is a real phenomenon. Now, here's another confusing wrinkle to this story, is that right from the jump, there is a disconnect between the recorded version of this band and the live version. So you have these 4 core players who are founded the band, and they're on 69 Love Songs, and they were in this original lineup, but it also seems like Stephin just didn't participate in some or maybe any of these early shows. And then on the first couple records, at least based on the wiki liner notes, he's listed as the sole musician sometimes, because it's all synth pop and stuff he's doing in his bedroom. And I think that continues to this day. If you watch their Tiny Desk concert or listen to some of their other stuff that's live, they drastically rearrange the songs. They'll switch lead singers, they'll switch keys, they'll switch harmonic arrangements, they'll switch instruments consistently. And they seem like they have built these songs for flexibility, which I think speaks to what I was saying earlier about them being sketches.
Right, to be changed.
Yeah, it's cool.
Right, to be changed live, yeah. And covering your own music almost, right?
Yeah, and it stands to reason that artists that play songs for a long time would want to reinvent songs to keep themselves interested, right? And you do see some artists doing that.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, it is an extra bit of effort and energy and challenge to do that, to rearrange one of your songs. And to be honest, most of the time, who has time for that? So it just understand that that's not...
I'm touring, damn it. Yeah.
It's not a snap your fingers and just go, do it this other way. Make it a cello instead of a guitar. Now you're going to sing it, and it's going to be in this key, and then I'm going to do this harmony. That takes work. So it is not that common, actually. I guess it also helps if you don't have hit songs that people are clamoring to hear in a very specific way. Okay.
It also means, again, these guys aren't lazy.
They're not lazy. No, they're definitely not lazy. So I realized that this whole 3-disc, 69 songs recorded in a bedroom concept might seem a little precious and artsy to some of you. And so those folks will be happy to continue to roll their eyes when they hear that the band name itself comes from an equally pretentious place, the title of a French surrealist book from 1920. No. So Magnetic Fields, have their first release in 1991. It's a single called 100,000 Fireflies, which I realized this week, despite what I said earlier, was actually the first thing I ever heard from the band, because it was on a mix CD that a friend made me a few years before what I said before, but it was unlabeled. So I didn't connect the band name to the song until much later. It doesn't have Stephin Merritt's voice on it. And I think this became a very minor college radio hit, got them rolling a little bit, got them a record contract. Magnetic Fields go on to release 4 or 5 more full-length records between 1991 and 1995. Kind of depends on how you count it, because 2 of them end up getting packaged together when they get their first major release into a single album. But they're slowly picking up speed and getting some indie interest over time. And Stephin, who writes all the songs, is consistently working with lots of other musicians, including the 3 other official members of the Magnetic Fields, who again are on this recording as well.
So dude doesn't stop.
He does not stop, and he did not stop after this, as we're going to get into. For their second album, though, they land a record deal with the then fairly new and independent label Merge Records out of North Carolina. Now, little side note, we've mentioned them before, but Merge was started by the members of the band Superchunk as a way to release their own music and some friends' music, but over the course of the 90s grew to become a real tastemaker for indie music, and they ended up releasing landmark indie albums like Neutral Milk Hotels and The Airplane Over the Sea, Spoons Kill the Moonlight, both of which, by the way, aren't on the 1001 list and do deserve the full glaring omissions treatment someday. And then, as we did mention on the show before, they reached a sort of real mainstream success, Merge Records that is, by releasing Arcade Fire's Funeral in 2004. But these successes are still years away at this point. They're very small. And finally, we get to the creation of 69 Love Songs. This album would eventually get released in September of 1999, and that brings us to everyone's favorite segment. It is 69 Love Songs by the numbers.
Yes.
Right. Hopefully there's not 69 of these numbers that you're
I'm kind of hoping for it. We'll see.
I will batter you into submission. How dare you? So first up, we've been saying it, it's number 4. The number of official band members in the Magnetic Fields. We've got Claudia Gonson, who sings some songs, does some piano, some drums, some backing vocals, plus some whistling. We've got Sam Davil, who plays the cello and the flute. And we've got a guy called John Woo, who plays banjo, plus some guitar, some mandolin, and some bass. In terms of additional musicians coming in to help make this record, we already mentioned the album has a passel of different singers. Stephin covers most of the songs as the lead singer, 45 of them in total.
Oh, wow.
But he recruited 4 other lead singers, and they each get 2 songs per disc each. So our focus list does attempt to highlight each of them at least a little bit, so we'll get to them when we get there. But there are also a handful of other guest musicians, and I'll just highlight one, the accordion player, Daniel Handler, most famous as the author of the children's books, A Series of Unfortunate Events, a.k.a. Lemony Snicket.
No way. He plays accordion on this? That's wild. Okay.
That's crazy.
He does. So last, but not certainly least in the band, we have, of course, Stephin Merritt, sole songwriter and producer on everything here. But what did he really do? That brings us to our next number, 60. As in 60 distinct instrument credits for Stephin Merritt. And because this whole album is about excess already, let's just list them out for you. He plays guitars, both 6 and 12 string. He plays ukuleles, both regular, baritone, something called a violin uke, and a ukulin, which might be the exact same thing, but they are listed separately. He plays lap steel, the mandolin, the saw, the regular violin. He plays organ and piano and maracas and congas and bongos and triangle. He plays xylophone, ocarina, finger cymbals, plus all the keyboards and other synths. He plays a harmonium. He plays a marxophone. He plays something called a spirit chaser, and then also something called a thunder sheet, which is often used in Foley work. But I am not done. He plays sleigh bells and melodica and the recorder and a steel drum and a washboard and a rain stick. He's responsible for finger snaps, plus a bamboo harp, something called chicken shakers, plus cowbells, and yes, a gong.
Man, please.
I bet you think this is over or hope it's over. It's not. He also credits himself with Fado guitar, a sitar, the chimes, a Roomba box. Okay, I'm done now. Just kidding. He plays a kalimba, a.k.a. a thumb piano, and something called a Paul Revere jug. What? And, of course, a drum kit and a penny whistle and a tremoloa and a zither.
What the hell are half these? I recognize most of those. I've got 5 or 6 that I am Googling right now. I don't know what a spirit chaser is, but...
Yeah, the Paul Revere jug is the one that really killed me, and I couldn't even figure out what the hell that even meant. But a lot of this is just, like Marty said, they're kind of random stringed instruments, maybe from other lands, and random pieces of percussion. I also saw a video with him using 2 whisks and banging them together for percussion. That didn't get listed in the credits. I don't know.
Yeah, you can find half of these at your local Goodwill store on any given day.
And look, I didn't even list them all. The whole aim of that segment was over-the-top excess, and I even tired myself out. But next, we have 100. The concept for 69 Love Songs started as, wait for it, even more songs than this.
Oh my God.
Originally, Stephin was picturing 100 songs centered around a basic theme, which he chose quickly as love songs. And as someone, again, who's tried hard to write songs, that is no easy feat. He did write 100 songs, by the way.
And he narrowed it down to the 69?
And he narrowed it on down, baby.
Wow. Okay.
And lastly, we have the number 3. That's how many sizes our Grinchly hearts grow when we see our listener numbers go up every single week, when we see our ratings and reviews tick up, and when people join our email list or hop over to our totally free Patreon to chat about records with us and the rest of our amazing audience. Seriously, we thank you for all of it. Any way you choose to support us and this work we do every week here, it means a heck of a lot. So thank you. Okay, back to our story about 69 love songs. Now, Stephin is quick to say that 69 Love Songs is not remotely an album about love. You see how this guy's kind of a tough interview?
Yeah.
He says it's an album about love songs, which are very far away from anything to do with love. And as I read that ridiculously frustrating interview quote, Wikipedia helpfully hyperlinked me to its official page on the concept of love. And thinking about someone genuinely reading through the Wikipedia love page and looking for answers made me feel a real pang of sadness.
You are an android, and what is love? Man.
Merritt said he originally pictured a musical review, a stage show, with what he described as 4 drag queens trading off lead singer duties at a bar where the audience would vote on which one did best, and then they'd be the one to actually get paid. Now, he was inspired to do all this by a guy he read an article about one day called Charles Ives. Charles Ives is an American composer from the first half of the 20th century. He wrote sonatas and symphonies, and he had a project called 114 Songs. I didn't go too deep into this, but it sounds like Charles Ives wasn't very appreciated in his own lifetime, but has since been called one of the first American originals in terms of classical music and in terms of experimenting with the form, and now his work is reasonably celebrated in that community.
Nice. All right.
So Stephen's like, hey man, 114, that's crazy. Like, let's not go overboard here. How about we round that bad boy down to a tight 100 songs? And he does. He writes 100 love songs throughout 1998, sitting in bars. And I think this would be a good time to talk about Merritt's preferred method of songwriting, which I'm quoting now, is at a bar with thumping disco music, 1/3 full of cranky old gay men gossiping.
Yeah.
So his whole process is he hangs out at loud bars, drinking cognac, and he does a lot of it, in case you can't tell. He sits there for like 8 hours at a clip, and an interviewer once asked him about this routine, saying, hey, I know you write songs sitting in bars. What is it about it that helps you be creative or productive? And Stephen, in his classic laconic way, says, well, alcohol.
Yeah. 100 songs in a year, and 40 of them are great.
Yeah.
It's pretty good batting average there.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I would have to agree.
I imagine is he just writing the lyrics? Or is he writing lyrics and a melody in a bar that has disco music playing?
In his head with the disco, right.
Yeah.
I get the impression that he is pretty in charge of every piece of this. But so maybe many of them start as lyrics. I think we're going to find that many of them start as titles or concepts.
Right.
But I do think he's very, very good in a workmanlike way at executing on these concept songs, if you will. I know it's a concept album, but he comes up with a concept for a song, and then you got to land it.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? And we've seen a lot of times, right, title first song making, right? And that goes south so quickly because you've one great idea, the title, and you can't deliver on it. Mm-hmm. If he's really good, at planting the scene in his own brain of the title and then let it take off, and that appears to be what happened here, is he's actually good at delivering that.
Yeah, and to our point, they all do sound a little different. Let me continue, because I think we're going to get to some of these pieces, right? So Stephen then takes a step back, and he realizes that 100 is still a hell of a lot of songs. So he drops the project down to the next magical number, which as he sees it is 69.
I'm guessing he was at number 67 and looked at 100 and was like, oh, Jesus. You know what? 69 works.
He does not seem afraid of writing, because he did some other stuff. He wrote a 50-song memoir more recently to commemorate his 50th birthday, where it's one song about each year of his life. He just is a workhorse writer.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So of the writing itself, he said, I cultivated deliberately conflicting aesthetic criteria, which is the most pretentious way possible to say I tried different stuff.
I was just about to ask you to translate that for me, the non-English major.
He's definitely a little artsy and pretentious,
sure,
but he also has a sense of humor. And one of the things that jumped out was, especially in this 33 1/3, where they're talking to the individual members who are on the tracks, including Stephin Merritt, they don't have a problem saying some songs are bad. Like that, I don't like that song at all. That's terrible. I wish I never had to play that again.
Okay.
They're kind of aware of it, and it seems like he was really into the idea for this record that it would be impossible for anyone to like all the songs. He was kind of like, love one, you have to hate some of the others. That was part of his thinking.
Well, he sure gave us a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
So, look, he's writing this while living in New York, and to the best of my understanding, couldn't find a ton of details, but to the best of my understanding, everything here is recorded in Stephen's studio apartment in Alphabet City, which is near the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Yeah, that kind of checks out.
I think that they have consistently been a home-recorded band throughout their entire career.
Okay.
I'm not sure they've ever set foot in a studio. You already know from me reading off the album credits that they try a lot of things here. He just seems like he walks around the house and just bangs stuff together. Again, it's a little pretentious, but it's also cool, and it is one of the reasons why you get a lot of different textures, right? And I wanted to say that it's not just different instruments and vocalists. There's also some other happy accidents that Stephin stumbled into, like when he accidentally deleted most of the recorded banjo part for the song Reno, Dakota, the arrangement of which is only banjo and voice. But instead of asking the banjo player to come back and re-record it, he just sampled what he had to a keyboard and played it through that way. And because of that, the part speeds up to get to higher note registers. So the effect is that the tempo changes whenever the chord changes.
That's kind of cool. That's fun. Yeah.
Just a fun little detail. Look, for anyone who's never home recorded stuff, most of the battle is actually troubleshooting the equipment, and you want to throw it out the window. And there's a healthy dash of accidentally deleting stuff you didn't need to delete. So, another part of his aesthetic, Stephin had this line that he'd say all the time during the making of 69 Love Songs, which was, "Or it could be done." And it's meant to be a purposeful mantra to not overdo things production-wise and to let the songs and the craft speak for itself.
Which you can hear, I think.
You definitely can, but I also think that's the charm. I think there's some brilliance to it. I would agree. I have kind of vacillated in my listening of it to thinking, these could use more work or more production or more blah.
Or they could be done.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm going to try to remind myself of that next time I'm making a record also.
Yeah, right.
Now, the track order, gonna blow your mind, is for variety, not coherence.
I thought they just threw all the album titles up in a bucket and grabbed them out of the air. And
Right. I was going to ask about that because each disc is almost the same exact length. And so that must have been a part of their considerations when organizing these songs as well.
Definitely. So according to Stephin, he somewhat meant for it to work in any order, and he considered just doing the track list alphabetically. But he decided against that in favor of getting more variety track to track, because when he did it alphabetically, he noticed that the first 5 songs or whatever had acoustic guitar in them. And so he purposely tried to mix it up. Now, as you mentioned, Marty, there is some planning involved here. 69 divides neatly into 23 times 3. So there are exactly 23 tracks per disc. He also purposely had each singer that wasn't him sing exactly 2 songs per disc.
that's pretty cool. That makes sense.
It is. And so there's definitely some thought that goes into it. Although we said it in general impressions, but I enjoyed putting the album on shuffle this week. I found that to be a helpful way to kind of dive into some of the deeper stuff because, and I think you said this maybe in our text string, Marty, but it's just natural for us as album nerds, every time we go to an album, to start at the top. It's a natural thing to play from the top. What that meant for me was that I knew the first disc way better than the other discs. And to be honest, I do think they front-loaded some of the best songs
Same.
on the first disc.
Also agree. My original tweet was going to be, it's like a roller coaster where you start at the top and you never come back up again.
That said, I do think there's some great hidden gems on those other discs as well, right? So speaking of Stephin's creative aesthetic, his songwriting approach, he's very purposefully non-autobiographical. We've been saying it, but he sees songwriting as a craft, not a vehicle for the expression of his feelings. And he is, as we said, extremely prolific. Since 69 Love Songs, Magnetic Fields have made a slew of other concept albums. One prompt where all the song titles began with I. One where they all used heavy distortion a la Jesus and Mary Chain. One, as I mentioned before, a 50-song memoir to commemorate Stephin's 50th birthday. One song for each year of his life. He's also got at least 3 other side projects going. One is called The Sixth. One is called Future Bible Heroes. It's a great name.
Yeah, totally.
It's pretty good.
And one called the Gothic Archies. Now, the Magnetic Fields, they're working on recording 69 Love Songs for about a year in Stephin's apartment, and they do have a deal with Merge Records. At that time, still an indie label, relatively small, right? And Stephin's worried that the label is going to absolutely hate the idea. He sees some of the logistical challenges of releasing this, but on the contrary, the folks at Merge are on board right away, and they just start planning exactly how to do it. A 3 compact disc album release is somewhat, if not entirely, unprecedented. So in the end, Merge decided to release a box set of all 3 as a limited edition, and then each of the 3 discs separately but simultaneously. They figured that the hardcore fans would buy the box set and the normies would consume it more piecemeal, right? This is released in September of 1999. And look, if I hadn't made it clear already, the band Magnetic Fields, including Stephin Merritt himself, do not have any particular hopes or dreams about this album. They were solidly a 10K selling indie band. That's more or less what they and their record label thought would happen next. Except it did not. They vastly underestimated the demand. They sold out of the box sets very quickly. They then scrambled to meet the surprising demand for everything in the early going. And basically this rocketed them to a whole nother level. It was an order of magnitude higher. They went from a 10K band to a 100K band.
Sellouts.
More or less overnight. It's one of the records that helped make Merge into an indie powerhouse, along with those other ones I mentioned. Now, later on, much later, I think, Stephin Merritt remarked in his standard droll fashion, the album was conceived as a publicity stunt. So I'm not surprised it got a lot of publicity.
Come on.
But honestly, I get the impression that really wasn't the case. I think they were just...
Right. This does not seem...
They were just going along their way, happy to be a relatively unknown indie band with a few rabid fans and sell 10,000 records. And this completely changed their fortunes. So this thing ends up being their biggest success. Again, by an order of magnitude, it's critically very well received. Spin magazine, Merritt's former employer, calls it a masterwork and says that pop hasn't seen a lyricist of Merritt's kind and caliber since, wait for it, Cole Porter.
Damn.
Rolling Stone liked it a little less, but still had this to say: Merritt is a drama queen. His grandiose lyrics can be catty, crude, and sometimes full of sappy goo, but they usually contain a little universal truth.
I mean, 3 out of 5 from Rolling Stone. That's a standout shitty grade compared to all the other reviews you can find on it.
The star rating does seem like they really hated it, but I went and read that review, and honestly, it seems pretty positive to me.
Okay.
However, I have one more review to read for you, and it is our spiritual seventh man, honorary complainer Robert Christgau, who said, "I dislike cynicism so much that I'm reluctant ever to link it to creative exuberance, but this cavalcade of witty ditties." He's so good. One-dimensional by design, intellectual when it feels like it, addicted to cheap rhymes, cheaper tunes, and token arrangements, sung by non-entities whose vocal disabilities keep their fondness for pop theoretical. It upends my preconceptions the way high art is supposed to. A+.
Wow.
That's one of the best, like, collection of words I've ever heard him give before.
Can't stand Christgau sometimes.
He called it a cavalcade of witty ditties. That is, I'm not sure of all the ones we've read, I've ever seen him give an A+ before, though. I'm not even sure I knew that was a grade option. So official sales data for this record, they end up selling 83,000 of those box sets, the complete album.
They were expecting to sell 10,000 and they sold 83,000.
I think they were expecting to sell something more like 300 of the box sets, and then maybe 10,000 all in of the other stuff.
Wow. Man, good for them.
Because again, like buying a 3 CD set, who's putting out 3 CD sets if it's not like a Rolling Stones greatest hits or something?
Right.
So 83,000 of the box sets eventually sold, 58K of just disc 1, 34K of disc 2, and 29K of disc 3. Now, I should mention that Merritt has been quoted as saying that volumes 2 and 3 are secretly better than volume 1, which is false. But I do think there's some good songs buried on there. And he continues to work. We mentioned some of the albums they've made, but Merritt has also adapted Chinese operas. He's composed film scores and soundtracks. He wrote a book in homage to 2-letter Scrabble words. He is an enigmatic workhorse of a writer.
What an odd bird. I still don't buy it that these are simply about love songs. I don't know, that whole, whatever that word salad was that he said, I don't know if I buy that, but
I agree. I don't love that dodging, but I do think what he's trying to get across, because I think there has to be an element of the autobiographical in anyone's writing. How could there not be, right? And we'll, as we dive into some of the songs, perhaps we'll point out some possible through lines there.
One thing we've learned on this podcast, talking a lot about songs, is that there are so many love songs when the writer is asked about them, they're like, oh no, it's just a song. And I think this might be the case for a lot of these. And I think maybe that, Adam, that's what he meant. He's like, they're not necessarily personal. They're songs I wrote. I'm a good songwriter, and I wrote songs about love.
Right. I picked the topic of love, and this is what came out. I'm creative. Right.
I more see it as the thing he's trying to get across, which is accurate, is that he is treating it like a writing exercise. He is literally trying to go through and say, what are the angles? The song topics include, I love you. You don't love me. You don't love me anymore. I'm sorry I love you. I love a city because it's where you are. You're actually in love with a dead person. And it goes on, right? And so I think in that sense, I think he's saying like they don't necessarily have to relate to me in any way.
Okay.
I'm able to put myself into the character and tell a story about a character that may or may not have anything to do with my life. I think that is what he's trying to get at. That to me is distinct from saying they literally have no connection to me, which I think is nay impossible.
Sure.
So the band still doesn't tour a lot, but they are currently on a 25-year anniversary tour for the album and playing all the songs over the course of 2-night shows.
Damn.
And like I said, they did a recent NPR Tiny Desk concert where they played songs from this album, which I thought was really cool, and I would recommend listening to it, if nothing else, because it showcases how much they changed the arrangements from the recording to here. Literally all the things I said, switching lead instruments, lead singers, keys, ranges, harmonies, everything, right? So I think they treat that as a fun exercise. And I said this closer to the top, but I threw out this exercise last week to cut down this 3-discer into a single 44-minute vinyl record just for fun, and because I was curious how much longtime fans of the record would either agree or disagree on how exactly that would go, like what would be the best songs. So we do tape these a little bit ahead of time, so I don't have any of your amazing audience playlists just yet, but when they come in, I'll do a mailbag type roundup. We'll talk through the points of agreement and disagreement there. But for now, I have one that I created, and I have the one that Sula created, totally independent of each other. They're each just happen to be 16 tracks, right around that 43-minute mark of a vinyl record. I'm just going to throw it to you guys. Any guesses how many of our tracks overlap of the 16?
I'm going to say 12.
Say right down the middle, half. So 8.
You're both high. It was 6 songs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, okay.
In total, which is a bit less than I would have thought. And I'm, of course, curious to hear from other fans as well, who hopefully will try the exercise before checking out our 2 playlists, which are linked in the show notes. But I think that says 2 things. One, I've alluded to it already. After really diving deeper on the record this week, I honestly don't want to listen to my mix anymore. I think the exercise that I myself proposed makes less sense to me now. And now I see that the ups and downs are the point, and I actually particularly like listening to the whole thing on shuffle. And number 2, I think that the lack of agreement on which tracks are best supports that.
Right.
So curious to see what happens next. But since we're talking about tracks, let's get into a handful of the tracks now. What do you say, gents?
Hell yeah, let's do this thing, man.
Awesome. Now, before we jump into our focus list, we broke tradition a little bit here. I just didn't think 5 songs covered the record. It covers a lot of ground. So we're going to do a few more here with a bit of a lighter touch to hopefully give you a little more of a real sense of the record. And the first song I'm going to go to here is called All My Little Words.
You said you were in love with me. Both of us know that that's impossible. And I could make you rue the day, but I could never make you stay. Not for all the tea in China. Not if I could sing like a bird. Not for all North Carolina. Not for all my little words. Not if I could write for you the sweetest song you ever heard. It doesn't matter what I do. Not for all my little words.
Totally love this one. That 12 string and the banjo is a great combination. And you can hear that in the room DIY. It's not super perfect mic placement. It feels raw. It feels like you're in the room. Really dug that. And yeah, just a lot of cool stuff here. There's that cello that comes in at the 58-second mark. The harmonies and the backups are great. Yeah, this was a great Great tune.
Yeah, I agree with Adam as far as the things that stood out to me in this song and the rest of the album are just like how much of the Appalachia bluegrass instruments show up all over the album. I guess I never really kind of realized it until giving it kind of a solid headphone listen, which I think was the first time I ever listened to this album on headphones. It's a very catchy song. I have a minor complaint is that it's about as repetitive as a song can get, but it doesn't mean I don't like it.
Yeah, let's talk about the song length for a second. So first of all, I agree this is a terrific song. This is track 3 if you're going through it in the order of the album, and I think it's the first song where you really go, oh shit, this guy can write a song.
Yeah.
This could be in the songbook, in my opinion, and I think it is ripe for someone else covering it, reinterpreting it, even adding a verse to it if they want. But let's speak about the song length thing. I did hear Stephin Merritt talk a lot about that, and he emphasized that he really believes in short pop songs. He really wants them to be tight and this kind of 2-minute length, a throwback to the early Beatles or even the Phil Spector, Ronettes era of pop music. That is what he really thinks of as pop music. And so it's not, at least to hear him tell it, it is not a lack of writing that creates where most of the tracks here are about 2 minutes or maybe 2:30.
That makes sense. I appreciate the approach too.
Yeah, so like I said, it feels timeless. I agree with the things that you guys noticed. The banjo, I rarely say this, but I love the banjo here. The cello comes in really nice over that chorus, very beautiful. This is a really fun one to play on guitar. It's a very simply constructed song, but there's a lot there. This is the one that Sula mentioned hearing in a TV show. It also contains that coined word unboyfriendable.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just such a great example of his economic writing style where you just know exactly what that word means instantaneously, even though it's not a real word. And it also feels like the whole thing is a little bit about a songwriter. All my little words. This is the guy that's putting words out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I know he said it's not autobiographical, but it feels a little meta to me, and I think that helps it along.
Definitely gets close.
It's like that Barry Manilow song. I'm the one who writes the songs. Is that what it's called? Where he's writing the song about the songwriter? Yes, calling out Barry Manilow in an episode.
Right, that's a good opportunity to keep rolling to the next song. This one's called Luckiest Guy on the Lower East Side.
Andy would bicycle across town in the rain to bring you candy. And John would buy the gown for you to wear to the prom. With Tom, the astronomer, who'd name a star for you. But I'm the luckiest guy on the Lower East Side. 'Cause I've got wheels and you wanna go for a ride.
Now, this song is one I didn't realize until we actually started this podcast that isn't sung by Stephin Merritt.
Right. This is yet another singer called Dudley Clute.
What a name. Yeah,
It's a
Dudley.
hilarious name. Apparently it was written specifically for the singer, and specifically the super long-held note was a challenge posed to him to help him quit smoking.
Oh, wow.
And speaking of which, the fun game here has always been singing along to this song and seeing if you can hold the note. And spoiler alert, you almost certainly cannot.
Wanna go for a ride. Wanna go for a ride.
That takes skill, man. I was going to say, because again, when I first ran through it, thinking like, is this the low guy from the other songs? I was like, first he's got range, and damn, he can hold that note. Okay, it's not, so I get it.
It is not, yeah. So, as I mentioned, this was really my first real introduction to the band. I think it is such a indie quirkathon of a track. Hey, what the hell is that quarter note drum sound?
I don't know what that is. It's like it's like someone hitting a reverb
The
spring.
reverb coil. Doink, doink, doink.
Yeah.
It drives me insane. I actually, that's one thing I had a hard time trying to turn it down in my headphones. I find it a very grating noise, but the song's still good. But
It's very charming, and the writing style is just great. It's this whole little world, And this trick of songwriting or writing where they just refer to people by their first names, like you already know who the hell they're talking about.
Right.
It's just really funny and charmingly indie.
This did that thing that I feel like country music as a genre does really well, which is it kind of like gives you that little joke at the end, right? Like it's, the little turn of phrase at the very end where he's now saying that, okay, well, he's actually the ugliest guy and you're only with him because he's got a car, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like it's such a fun little self-contained universe and story. It's awesome.
And it rings true, right? That you can believe that there's a relationship based on the ownership of a car.
Right.
Especially in New York, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Now, so that actually is my complaint about the tune. I do think it's a great tune, and I really do love it. But if I had to change something, I don't like that he changed the chorus lyric to "ugliest guy," and maybe that he leaned into it that much as opposed to just making it a punchline.
Okay.
It just feels a little out of step with the bouncy, fun nature of the tune. But I did hear that Stephin wrote this partially based on Irving Berlin, who's a very famous songwriter from the 20s, who at the time he said was not considered very attractive, but he married a woman who some had called the most beautiful woman in New York.
That's funny because when I hear that line, I'm like, oh, this sounds like this line should belong to Morrissey and not the Magnetic Fields,
I just want to say too, that's another simple song in terms of, I don't know exactly, but it's probably some variation of 1-4-5. Nothing crazy, but there's a lot of nice little pop touches and counter melodies and things happening with the piano.
There's melodic stuff going on in the background that's really, really cool. It makes a song sound real like big and sounds awesome.
Absolutely.
That weird, horrific nightmare music that comes in at like 150, I guess that's the bridge, where it's just out of sorts and odd.
Oh, yeah.
But then jumps right back in again. Like,
Day is beautiful, and so are you. My car is ugly, but then I'm ugly too. I know you'd never give me a second glance, but when the weather's nice, all the other guys don't stand a chance. I know.
Yeah, he does that weird bridge thing a lot where everything drops out. But yeah, this is very...
it's very detuned and weird. You feel like you're in a fun house or a merry-go-round that's from hell. I don't know.
Yeah, great song to sing along to. Okay, let's keep it rolling because we did do a few extra songs here. Next song up is called I Think I Need a New Heart.
Stand still, all I can feel is the time standing still as you put down the keys and say don't call me please while the radio plays. I think I need a new heart. Oh, I think I need a new heart. Oh.
I mean, it's like three banger songs in a row, in my opinion. I mean, it's like you could put three better songs back to back to back.
Yeah, and I am, of course, crafting this. First of all, this is a very hard focus list to craft because I wanted to highlight personal favorites as well as the stuff that I really thought would help sell the record to someone who was maybe hesitant. But of course, I also included a low point. I hope you can guess which one it is.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
And highlight some of the different singers and all this kind of stuff and go into those other discs. But yeah, I think this is a great song. I actually have heard this in a television commercial, so I think of it as one of the more successful tunes on the record. It's got this bouncy, brilliant melody.
It's a weird take on like country western music or something. It's so odd, but it sounds like country and western.
It's an earworm though. It really gets into your head, right?
Yeah, totally.
And that, like, is it a wood block or is it just a weird metronome in the back there?
Yeah.
I heard it described as a rumba rhythmically, which can't really say if that's true or not.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's definitely some sort of like Latin southwestern thing going on.
And then he gets that steel drum in near the end that comes in at the end, or it's a synth doing a steel drum thing.
Mm-hmm. It's really the melody, like you were talking about the hooks, Marty, and just the octave jump that he does for the chorus. What is it? It's just an octave, but it's just something. It's just so odd. You would think you would do a third or a fifth, but to have that first note and then jump an octave and then finish the rest of the line, it's just really cool. It's tasty.
And another one that seems like it walks the line of being biographical.
Again, I think this is a through line with his songwriting, but the bridge here in particular is perfectly executed lyric writing. You get this dropout, like is his wont, which is maybe strummed on, maybe it's one of those resonator guitars, one of the ones with the metal plates in it or something.
The dobro. Yeah, right.
And the lines are, because I always say I love you when I mean turn out the light, and I say let's run away when I just mean stay the night. But the words you want to hear, you will never hear from me. I'll never say happy anniversary.
'Cause I always say I love you when I mean turn out the light. And I say let's run away when I just mean stay the night. But the words you want to hear, you will never hear from me. I'll never say happy anniversary.
This small amount of words outlines a character better than most 2-hour movies.
Right.
Totally.
It's just good writing.
Man. Yeah.
Okay, we can keep this love fest going with the next song. It is called Book of Love.
The book of love is long and boring. No one can lift the damn thing. It's full of charts and facts and figures and instructions for dancing. But I love it when you read to me and you can read me anything.
Now, Rob, were you going to talk about a famous cover version of this song?
Yes. Why don't you tell us who covered it, Marty?
So I mean, you'd never guess. Peter Gabriel has did he release a cover of this song?
Yeah. Yep. It's on Spotify. It'll be on our playlist.
Yeah, he released a cover of this song.
Wow.
Yeah, and apparently he hooked onto it real early, and I think even performed it or brought Stephin Merritt out to perform it with him one time or something. I couldn't get the whole story there. Either he came out on stage with them while they were touring it and then quickly released his own version afterwards. Okay, so this is another all-time terrific song for me. I think it's perfectly crafted, and in this case, I think his voice is perfect for it. I'm not against cover versions of it, but I think they nailed it. I think they landed the definitive version here. And this is one that I sing. I've been singing this on my guitar forever. I just think it's it covers a lot about love, in my opinion. The kind of blunt realism of it when he says that the book is long and boring and no one can lift the damn thing, but also these romantic and simple sentiments.
Yeah.
I love it when you sing to me.
Yes, it's cute. It's like perfect lyrical writing when you're describing a book and the things that are in it and how that relates to the person you're singing the song to.
Yeah, and he does the melodic thing again, which is he likes to bend notes. I think that does help make melodies a little more memorable, or maybe it grounds them in a certain kind of humanity. But his chorus again is there's something about that technique that really does it for me.
And, you know, opposite of the last song, when he's like, you'll never hear me say happy anniversary, at the end of this song, he says, I love it when you give me things. You ought to give me wedding rings.
Exactly.
Kind of the opposite sentiment.
Yeah, this was one of the most like emotional songs. I had never heard this song, and like maybe 10 seconds in, I was like, okay, this is going to be something special. And then you get through the song and you're like, holy shit. That line, the book of love has music in it. In fact, that's where music comes from. Like friggin' goosebumps, dude. Like that's, yeah, I just floored with this song. Well, this is 1001 Album Complaints. My complaint is that from a production standpoint, I know it's in an apartment, but he kind of shoots himself in the foot because there's this like effects loop reverb thing that's feeding back at points that really pulls me out of it. And again, it's because I'm a nerd audiophile, but that's the one thing that bothered me about this track.
It's got that Roland space echo on his voice. I think that's what you're talking about there.
Okay, yeah, right. Now, Rob, I will have to say that I feel like I've grown as a listener.
Oh.
Can you imagine if we had listened to this album in like the first 10 episodes? I just would have spent all the time, he's out of pitch, he's 20 cents flat, he's sharp. Oh, screw that, man. This is a great tune. Great tune.
It really is a great one to sing at home. So simple, Just lovely. And I believe he's playing a baritone ukulele here.
Oh, that's what gives it that sound. You're right. It doesn't sound like a guitar. Yeah.
Right.
It complements his beautiful baritone voice.
He goes so low on some of these notes. It's pretty crazy. Although I think we're going to get to one where I think he goes even lower.
Wedding rings.
Okay, let's keep it rolling. Got a couple more to get through here, including our low point, which we had a few to choose from, or I had a few to choose from, but I chose one. Here is the next song up, though. It's called Washington, D.C.
WASHINGTON, baby, DC. WASHINGTON, baby, DC. Washington, D.C., it's paradise to me. It's not because it is the grand old seat of precious freedom and democracy. No, no, no. It's not the greenery turning gold in fall, the scenery circling the mall. It's just that's where my baby lives, that's all. Washington.
I was talking with my friend Courtney before the show about this song, and she said, "Hey, Mickey, you're so fine," which I think is very much.
Oh no. This is proof positive of what I've always known my entire life, is that the Bay City Rollers were one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. SATURDAY, night.
Right. But this song for me was a surprise standout. It was the first song on the playlist that I was like, "Oh, I don't think I know this song," and I really liked it. I thought it kind of captures like a Simon and Garfunkel spirit. And yeah, I was like, cool, this is now on my massively big liked songs playlist on Spotify.
I think Simon and Garfunkel is a great comp. So we're into disc 2 now. And I think, Marty, you had mentioned that you had owned disc 1
Correct.
for a long time. So that might be why it's less familiar to you.
Exactly.
And, even though I had the full album, I would have to say the same thing. So I wanted to purposely go and find what I thought of as some of the gems on these other discs. In my opinion, it is a very successful song. It's a complete little story. It's got a fun melody. It's a gimmick of a pop song, kind of like a "Oh, Mickey, you're so fine." But I think they execute it very well.
Oh man, I did not like this tune. This one just fell flat for me. Again, it's almost difficult to even pick apart these songs at all. But the fact that it's just guitar during the verse, like they just throw in some shitty drums and some shitty bass, I feel like it would have done a little bit more. I mean, my wife used to live in DC, and I can tell you the city is much cooler than this song. So,
all right, here we're getting Grumpy Adam again. The one anecdote I heard about this one that I thought was funny was Claudia, who's the singer here, said that at some point she got pitched by George W. Bush's campaign team and that they wanted to use just the isolated W shout.
Oh, wow.
She declined.
Could have cashed in. Support a war criminal.
All right. On that note, let's keep it rolling. The next song up is called Papa Was a Rodeo.
I see that kiss me pucker for me, but maybe you should plug it with a beer, 'cause Papa was a rodeo, Mama was a rock and roll band. I could play guitar and rope a steer before I learned to stand. Home was anywhere with diesel gas, love was a trucker's hand. Never stuck around long enough for a one-night stand. Before you kiss me, you should know Papa was a rodeo.
Yeah, I like this song. I mean, it's not the most exciting song on the album, but I think it's another song I didn't know very well, and a song I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like it. It's not like, oh my God, this is amazing, but I think it's a fun, cool song.
I feel like this might be my personal favorite song.
Okay.
On the record, in part because I do think of it as a discovery, because it's kind of buried down there. It's a great country song. It's definitely a bit of a dirge. Mm-hmm. I like to think it's a little subversive because it seems like it's about a gay relationship. It feels prescient of something like Brokeback Mountain to me.
Right.
And I think it's another great example, whether, I don't know if this is a title first exercise or not. But Papa Was a Rodeo, just that says a lot. It's a short amount of words, and he's able throughout the song, I think, not just in that line, pack a lot of storytelling detail into a few words.
And even the title makes you think, because rodeo is not a person, it's not a job. So immediately you think, what do you mean Papa's a rodeo? And you start thinking about what are rodeos? You're right. So it starts this storytelling even before the song starts.
Yes. So to me, this is a really terrifically crafted chorus, and the writing is really tight. This is the other one where I was able to find a modern cover. A guy called Orville Peck did a cover of this in 2024. Now, heads up, he is, I think, also gay and a baritone voice. But so I think there's still some meat on the bone here for more people to take on these songs and interpret them more far and wide than they have been interpreted. In fact, I was a little surprised that I didn't find more covers of these tunes. It feels kind of like they're just waiting to be reinterpreted.
Mm-hmm. I will have to say, I think the lowest note that I heard, I think, is when about 8 seconds before the end of the song, on the line, "What a coincidence, your Papa was a rodeo too." When he sings the word "your," it's, as far as I can tell, the lowest note.
Yeah, he goes really low here. But he also goes pretty high. This is one where I've messed around with this a bunch on the piano, and it took me a while to find the right key because I can't go as low as him. If you start at a certain place and you're like, no, yeah, I'm getting through it here. This is in my range.
Right.
But then he goes pretty high at the end of the chorus. So you got to find the right thing.
I also like the opening line of this song, which is, "I like your twisted point of view, Mike."
It's great. It's a lot. It's simple storytelling. I'm harping on it, but I just think the writing is really tight in a way that, pull up any old dumb Netflix show. It takes them 8 hours to tell a story as fast as this song does.
Yeah.
So, okay. We can keep rolling now to something else. This one's called "Love is Like Jazz."
As you go along, and you act as if you really knew the song.
It's like written by somebody who's never heard jazz, only heard of jazz.
Yeah, classic jazz instrumentation, double bass and accordion.
I would believe it if this song was totally improvised.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah.
I picked this as the low point. There are some other very skippable songs: Punk Love, World Love, Experimental Love, or whatever it's called. But to me, this is even those I can kind of more forgive. I'm offended by this more because I think you could say, or maybe even complain, that the whole songwriting gimmick here, apart from being love songs, is that it's about analogies. He uses analogies a lot. Right. And this is an analogy that does not work. This song sucks. It's hard to listen to. And it also goes on significantly longer than the average song length on the record.
This almost suggests that there were 66 love songs, and he had to just he had to bang out another quick 3.
Stretch it, right?
So what was really interesting to me was that in the little oral history I read in the 33 1/3, multiple people, maybe not Stephin himself, but multiple people who were on the track were like, yeah, this song sucks. We're not supposed to talk about this one, right?
We've been instructed to not speak about this to the public.
So I do I got the feeling in other places too, that to everyone in the band's credit, they do not seem shy about announcing which songs they hate from the record. And that includes the songwriter.
I would agree with them. I mean, he says the same song a million times in different ways, strange fruit with and without wind chimes. It's like, okay, that's what jazz is to you.
There was something that I wasn't sure how he did it. So I used to have an accordion, and I actually played one. We played a Counting Crows song in high school, the song Omaha, and there's an accordion, and of course I'm Polish. I had one at my grandparents' house. But there's this effect here where the accordion detunes for a second, and I can't tell if that's him playing with the tape speed or if it's just a question of letting the bellows out too slow that actually makes the note sync or escalate. Anyway, If somebody who plays professional accordion, let me know.
Especially if your name is Weird Al.
Right?
Please
Come
write
on,
it.
come on, Weird Al,
Answer
hear
this
the
very
show.
specific accordion question. Again, this is Daniel Handler of Lemony Snicket fame, who's just buddies with the band and has performed live with them many times. And I assume he's a competent accordion player. I can't really tell though.
Yeah, right. This is not a good showcase, but
Okay. Let's keep it rolling here. The next song up is Love is Like a Bottle of Gin.
You can find it on the Bowery, or you can find it at Elaine's. It makes your words more flowery. It makes the sun shine, makes it rain. You just get out what they put in, and they never put in enough. Love is like a bottle of gin, but a bottle of gin is not like love.
All right, I'm kicking this one off. The ever elusive Perfect Song. That's right, I said it. This is the analogy song executed perfectly. No notes.
There it is.
Perfect vocal. Perfect singer to do it. Perfect arrangement with what I always thought was a bass, but I think, according to the stuff I read, is actually a cello.
I thought it was like a Rhodes or something.
I think he's using like cello harmonics. Well, maybe there's a couple things mixed in there. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I said, yeah, the similes, right? He's just running with this is like, this is like, this is as. It just feels like a poem. I felt like the lyrics came first, and they're extremely well done, but then they were just hastily thrown over some bass noise. So I didn't think it was nearly as perfect as you did, Rob, but I do think the lyrics are a remarkable comparison between, using all of the quirks of liquor and equating that to love. I really did enjoy that.
This is a song that has that punchline at the end. Kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of...
But gin is, yeah, right.
Right. He's using a very simple logical construct. Just because A is like B, B is not necessarily like A. But he kind of lands it as a punchline, and it reminded me of Tom Waits' The Piano Has Been Drinking, which is another song I think is perfectly constructed.
Yeah, I'm with Adam on this. I think lyrically is excellent, but overall, melodically, overall song, it falls just a little bit to me on the boring side.
I always thought he was trying to give bass players something to play and sing because they really don't have anything. Okay. Oh, by the way, we're on to disc 3 now, and I noticed that the author of the 33 and the Third book, who again is one of the singers, he's the same singer that sang All My Little Words. He called. I assume he was joking. It was hard to tell like what was real and what was not, but he was a part of the recording process, and he called Disc 3 the comedy album. He called Disc 1 the pop album, and he called Disc 2 the ballads album. So take that for what it's worth as we go into the very last song on the album and the last song on our focus list. It's called Zebra.
And the rest of our lives is one long honeymoon. Well, that doesn't mean we're in love. If you really loved me, you'd buy me a beautiful pearl. But you've already bought me all of the pearls in the world. So there's one thing I crave when my days become ho-hum and blah. I want a zebra. We've got so many tchotchkes.
This is kind of like a silly song. It's like a little waltz or like a drinking song, or
Look, it's very clever. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. I felt there needed to be some symmetry here with such a long album to put the last song on here. I also wanted to showcase the accordion even further. But that said, even though it might be accused of being overly clever. It's a very clever song, right? And it's also clever that they put it at the end of the record. It reminds me of that old Stephin Merritt joke where he says, I finally got around to reading the dictionary. Turns out the zebra did it.
that's funny.
Oh, I didn't think about, the letter Z starting the song, but completely different take. I was very underwhelmed and, in fact, a little disappointed. Now, in my head, I knew I wasn't going to get some giant orchestral masterpiece, right? But I was hoping for something that at least spoke to me a little bit more. I didn't understand this song, the reference to Zelda, I guess. That kind of made sense. I get that it's a quirky ditty, you know. I took that back to Her Majesty ending Abbey Road, you know, something cute, throw it in there. But I don't know, man, this one just felt short. And I realized too, like you said, if they mixed things up for the album, I would have rather had anything else end the album than this song.
Interesting. To me, it works as the end, although I do agree it's one of the moderately successful songs. It's certainly not one of my favorites. I did not include it on my shortened disc, for instance. I do also think it's an example of how he's able to, songwriting-wise, write a line between something clever. It's about someone demanding a zebra and then a second zebra, but that also rings true to a human emotion of people who it's kind of never enough for. And yes, we're rich, and I still want more.
Okay.
And it totally is a jokey song.
I didn't. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
The little sting of Zelda looks lonely. I want a second zebra. It's just, it's funny to me that you named the zebra Zelda. That's funny.
It's funny. It's funny. It's also funny that you can see kind of how people are listening to this album by looking at all 69 tracks and how much they're played. You can see it just trailing off from disc 1 to disc 3. And by the end,
Spotify?
Yeah, in Spotify. It's something like one of the least likely songs that a listener would even get to.
Right.
Well, there is one that has like fewer than 5,000 plays. I think it's Experimental Love.
Oh, yeah. Experimental Music Love. That has 3,800. That's odd.
And that is hard to listen to. I can't deny it. But it does announce what it is before you go in. So I think that's kind of fair.
Truth in advertising.
Truth in advertising. Okay. We've gabbed plenty about this record. We've listened to a smattering of songs from all the discs and all the singers. Actually, I realize now we didn't get to the second female singer in a lead role, but she was the harmony and the second voice in Papa Was a Rodeo. Her name's Shirley Sims. So we kind of covered everything. I think we're ready to push it to a vote. Is this album a must listen before you die? And before I throw it to our panel of complainers, I just have another clip. Sula's thoughts, our listener who suggested this. A reminder, she suggested this to punish Adam. So I'm not sure her goal was truly met, but I tell you, I am delighted, as I'm sure she will be, to know that Adam's tough shell has been cracked at least a little bit. But let's hear some final thoughts from Sula.
September 2024 was the 25th anniversary of the album, and the Magnetic Fields are on a world tour performing the 3 discs over 2 nights. I have been lucky enough to get tickets for both nights for this October, so winning this coveted prize of suggesting an album for your show is the cherry on top.
Such a nice person to say all that.
That is awesome. Sula, you'll have to write to us after you go see the concert with detailed notes. Make it an audio diary if you want. Send it along. We would love to hear how your concert experience is.
And I assume you're voting no on this, Sula.
Right? No vote was cast. You're right. Oh, man, leaving it up to us to assume.
All right. Like Sula said, they're on tour now. If you have a chance to see them, check them out. But we are now going to vote. Is this a must listen before you die? And I am going to send it first to Marty.
Well, this album for me is an extra enthusiastic yes. It's a no-brainer. It is brilliantly crafted, a timeless album. I recommend all our listeners give this one a listen. And if you don't enjoy it, don't tell me about it, because I don't want to hear it.
We can't be friends. I'm sorry.
Yes, great. Thank you, Marty. Your vote has been recorded. Now to the most suspenseful moment of the podcast. Adam, what say you?
Not nearly as suspenseful as I even might have thought. This is a pretty easy yes after going through the week, and hearing the story even more just solidified it. Fantastic writing, the quirky short pop songs. This is great. Yeah, a lot of it's weird. I know it's not a question of length, right? The whole thing of the 69 love songs, that's fine. But yeah, if you have a chance, listen to this. Yeah, right. You're not going to sit to it in 1 3-hour chunk, but throw it on, like Rob said, put it on shuffle for a couple of days. But yeah, this is a yes for me. This was actually quite a treat. And my only regret is that I'm only finding out about this 25 years too late. I wish I had had more time to spend with this one. And I know I'm kind of gushing over it, but I was really, really floored with how much I actually wound up liking this.
Excellent. Well, I'm not going to keep you guys in suspense. I already said it was a 10 of 10 record. You should absolutely listen to this for all the reasons we described. I really appreciate artists who take chances. And even more than that, I appreciate artists who remind me that there is still a lot of creativity to be put out there in the world. You can, if you're not careful, get to thinking that everything has been done. But this, when I listened to it almost 20 years ago, and when I listened to it this week, it still sounds fresh. And I think the execution, the lyricism, the cleverness is all on point. I agree with what the other guys said. If you are coming at it new, probably a shuffle in pieces is the best way, or you can check out my playlist 44-minute version, which includes most of the songs on the focus list, or Sula's version to get a little taste and get your bearings. But absolutely worth diving into this band. And of course, this is their only record on the list.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, then that is that. And I also want to say that I have not so secretly been hoping for this to come up on the Albinator for years now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it is such a personal favorite of mine. And when I thought of that in my heart of hearts, I was thinking about getting Adam to appreciate and enjoy this. So it is truly a great pleasure, Adam, that you enjoyed at least some of this and were impressed by it. And that brings joy to my heart. So thank you, Adam, and thank you, Sula, as well. Marty, you get nothing.
Okay, that's fine. I expect nothing.
I'm just kidding. I'm very happy you're here as well, Marty. Love is going around. Let's do just a couple more things before we call it a week, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We are going to dip our hands, or rather I am going to dip my hand into the old mailbag and pull out some listener mail for this week. And spoiler alert, this is people yelling at us.
We're due. I feel like we're due up for that. So
There have been a lot of nice emails coming across recently.
to balance it out.
Hey man, I just take them as they come in, guys. So first up, we have listener Marty from Melbourne.
No shit. What up?
Hailing from all the way over in Australia. He says, I have a simple 2-word review for 1968's Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention album. I'm calling it vomit soup. That was the biggest mess of regurgitated carrots, celery, and potatoes, and a complete waste of 39 minutes that I will never, ever get back. I'd rate Kid Rock or The Hoff, he's talking about David Hasselhoff's album that we covered over on Vanity Projects, higher than this crap.
I'm tempted to agree with him.
Anyway, love the show. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So,
Oh, man.
wanted to read that for you, Adam, because I think you felt a little outnumbered by...
Thank you. I did. I forget what I voted no on that, I believe.
Oh, let me check the scrolls. Adam
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
voted yes. We convinced Adam.
Oh,
God damn it.
It was the right vote. Actually, it was a clean sweep on that one.
Well, Marty, you have one thing going for you, and that's your very, very cool name.
All right. Next up, we have Soren writing in. He says, first-time caller, long-time listener. I just listened to the Purple Rain episode, and I have thoughts. Damn it.
Okay.
What makes Prince different from almost everyone else is the way he inhabits his songs. Yes, he's a lousy movie actor, and yes, Purple Rain is not a good movie, but in his songs, he's utterly convincing, no matter how stupid the subject matter. Specifically, you are dead wrong about the song The Beautiful Ones. It's the best song on Purple Rain. First of all, guys, he's referencing a record that we covered, 3 years ago now.
Well, I appreciate him going into the back catalog. First off,
absolutely.
thank you, Soren. Kicking ass.
I've got some shit over the years about my take on Purple Rain, and I just want you to know, Soren, that I listened to The Beautiful Ones again, and it still sucks. He goes on to say, what you're missing there is that it's all about the vocal performance. The instruments are all there to support that. The first half is Prince being moody and reflective and bitter, and in most songs you'd get a bridge, and that might be more expressive, but instead we get this other synth buildup, and Prince turns into a quivering ball of need, and he stays there for the whole rest of the song. The character's losing control under the surface before losing it in public. It isn't undisciplined or performatively freaky. It's an essential component of the structure of the song and a key part of the story it's trying to tell.
Wow.
I've got more, but I shall stop here.
Sounds like someone has some conviction.
Well, I got to go back and re-listen to that song now in light of all of those words.
Sure. Check out Purple Rain. Purple Rain's a great album, but to say The Beautiful Ones is the best song on Purple Rain is definitely a hot take, Soren. But we appreciate you writing in with whatever you want to tell us. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? And also, I want to mention this again. We've been hearing more and more about where you originally discovered us. We love hearing about that. And to that end, I have one final note from Sula telling us about just that thing.
Lastly, I would like to dedicate this episode to my colleague Kelvin Thompson, musician and brilliant music teacher. Without him, I would not be listening to your podcast. He mentioned to me the episode he was listening to at the time, Hotel California, and being a massive Eagles fan, I wanted to hear what a bunch of American musicians had to say about another bunch of American musicians. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Oh, nice. All right.
Excellent. We'd love to hear how you discovered the show, which friend turned you on to it, or however else you got to us, plus any of your other thoughts. Send them on over to 1001albumcomplaints@gmail.com. And one more thing before we close it out. Sula, thank you so much for recommending this great album. It was such a joy to dive into it. Really enjoyed the week. Really enjoyed your pick. And of course, supporting the show and our music, sending these great audio bits in. We really want to thank you, plus everybody in the listening audience. We're excited to run a contest like that again in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll second all that. Thank you, Sula. That was great.
Awesome. Well, we have but one thing left to do here. Tom has got the Albinator over to me by hook or by crook. It is wearing a beret and reading Camus and smoking clove cigarettes in the corner. And we are going to give it a spin to find out what our homework is for next week. Another indie quirkathon, I assume.
Of course.
Without further ado, next week we shall be listening to... Ah, yes. It's another bedroom recording. Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power. Should be fun.
Quirky little short ditties, right?
A cavalcade of witty ditties coming our way. I'm certain.
A little dime bag Daryl action coming up, baby.
Hell yeah. We definitely like to keep it random around here via the album.
Hell yeah.
So looking forward to that. You might get the bends adjusting your Spotify here,
Oof, yeah.
But give it a shot. Listen to Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power along with us, and we hope you join us again next week for that. For everyone here at 1001 Album Complaints, I have been Rob.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Marty.
Boo.